Hey there, honey bunnies. Welcome to episode 40 of Sovereign Storytellers podcast with your host, Michelle Wolf. Today's episode is on idiot compassion versus genuine compassion. I'm in, as many of you know, the Created Life Academy with Sandy Amorim. And Sandy talks a lot about tolerating and what we're tolerating, and that in the ending of tolerations, we release and free up a lot of energy that we can use for creations instead. And I have found myself tolerating too many things in my desire to understand all people's viewpoints. It's pretty rare for me to come down hard on an issue on one side or the other. There's a few things that I'm an absolute this way, this way or no way if you're going to be in my world, but it's pretty rare. I do spend a lot of time making space for everyone to have their opinion, whether I agree with it or not. But I find myself on the issue of gun control and immigration having tolerated things for too long. My family has guns, had guns. I own a gun I live in the woods. I don't hunt, but my family does. I'm not opposed to hunting. I am opposed to the free-for-all, complete lack of gun control that we have. And I'm pretty done with people seeing our numbers compared to the entire rest of the world and still saying that banning guns or gun control is not the answer, that it must be mental health, that it must be psych drugs, that it must be this or that, rather than what it is that we don't want to give up our toys. I'm not opposed to hunting. I'm not opposed to target shooting or competitive shooting sports at all. I'm opposed to the women who are dying every minute of every day being shot by their partners in domestic violence, and I am absolutely opposed to any rifle, semi-automatic, AK-47, assault rifle, whatever you want to call it, quibbling over the name of the gun is a deflection, and I'm done with that too. It's a gun that can mow people down in seconds by the hundreds. That is never supposed to be in the hands of a civilian. It is a military-grade weapon that does not belong on the streets. Here's the bottom line of all the gun control, blah, blah, bark, bark, woof, woof that we're hearing. We haven't tried it. We haven't tried it. Other countries have tried it, and they have seen their numbers plummet. But we haven't tried it, and we have to. We have to give it a shot. And if our numbers don't change like the rest of the planets, well, then let's talk about how you get your gun back. But until we've tried it, saying that, it won't work, sorry, that's not defensible. That's not a defensible position anymore. The counter argument to all the research is, statistics and who funded it and yada yada, and let's quibble over, it's not an assault weapon, it's actually a semi-automatic, yada yada. Doesn't matter. The gun is what the gun is, whatever name you want to put on it. And if you're not opposed to people being safer, then you should be willing to try gun control. You should be willing to vote out the people who won't bring it to the floor to be voted on. Okay, this is where idiot compassion comes in. I've been lost in my value of giving everyone space to believe what they want to believe and not calling out the fact that this is a problem, more than a problem. Like, there's not a word that can even describe this problem. So idiot compassion is that. It's allowing and not seeing clearly. It's enabling ignorance to continue rather than using whatever tools I have available to say, no, we have to try it. I don't want to give up my toys either. I like sport shooting. I don't do it very often, but it is enjoyable. But my enjoyment of sport shooting has no meaning compared to humans being mowed down when they go shopping or out to get a drink or anywhere at any time. Okay? If I was a hunter, my enjoyment of hunting has no meaning when we are experiencing living in a war zone and other countries are telling people not to come here. Okay? It doesn't matter anymore. It's not a need, it's a want. And the want and all the excuses to keep that have no meaning. So I've been practicing idiot compassion. I've been tolerating not unfriending. And let me tell you, the unfriend button is your friend on social media. If you want to unfriend someone, if seeing their name causes you conflict in your body, your well-being matters more. So idiot compassion, here's a quote by Pema Chodron. It refers to something we all do a lot of and call compassion. In some ways, it's what's called enabling. It's the general tendency to give people what they want because you can't bear to see them suffering. Basically, you're not giving them what they need. You're trying to get away from your feeling of, I can't bear to see them suffering. In other words, you're doing it for yourself. You're not really doing it for them. Being nice is a way we avoid the discomfort of potential rejection and being kicked out of the tribe. Being nice is our conflict avoidance tactic. And yet, when we're being nice and allowing these pushbacks against gun control to go on without confrontation, that's being an idiot. That's idiot compassion. Idiot compassion allows child abuse to go on and on and on. All kinds of perversions of power to go on and on. We don't want to get on the bad side of our friends. We don't want to piss off the neighbors. We don't want to be criticized, disapproved of, all the things. And I don't want to either. And yet on this subject, don't even get me started on immigration. I can't even touch on that subject because I'm too fired up still about it. I can't speak coherently to it. I'm insane about it, actually. But it's another area where I've been practicing idiot compassion and trying to understand other people's views. I'm done. I'm done with that. I'm not tolerating that anymore. I know what's right for me. And what's right for me is to publicly say we must give up our toys to save other people's lives. And then if what you're saying is true, that gun control isn't the answer and that it won't change anything, then fine. Get your gun back. Let's set up a system where you can reclaim it if nothing changes. Let's give it a shot. Let's put some rules in place about how you can get a gun, when you can get a gun, what you have to go through to get one. Australia didn't make it to where you can't have a gun to hunt or to sport shoot. But they made the process of how you get that gun where, reasonable and complicated as it should be. We're raised to keep, I don't know. I guess in some ways we're raised to mind our own business, and in other ways we're raised to tell everybody what to do, and everyone hates unsolicited advice. Everyone hates being told, hey, do this, hey, do that, rather than being asked, have you done this, have you done that? Everyone hates that. And if you're a human design fan, it's all but, one of the types. It's absolutely against your energy to pop in with unsolicited advice, to pop in and speak up when you haven't been invited. However, to not speak up about this is complicit. To not speak up says to the people fighting to hold on to their toys that it's okay, and it's not. And here's the deeper part of compassion. When we die, and I believe this is true, we have a life review time. We go over what we've done, and we get to see and experience how it impacted others. Frankly, I'm not looking forward to that. I've said and done some mean things. I've made a lot of mistakes. And we stop people because they're going to go through an enormous amount of pain if they've been part of what caused an enormous amount of damage. So here's an example that makes that a little more clear. Sharon Salzberg is a wonderful author. Salzberg, I think. Sharon Salzberg. And she gave an example of, she was in India, I believe. Excuse me if I mess up any of the details. But it's the difference between compassion and idiot compassion. So she's sitting with her teacher in a vehicle, a rickshaw, I think. And a guy runs up to them and grabs Sharon's stuff out of the vehicle. And she doesn't stop him. And her teacher is like, why didn't you stop him? And she said, well, I thought I was supposed to just allow everything to happen as it happens. And her teacher said, you hurt him by not stopping him. That now he's going to, at some point, see clearly what he did. And he'll now have to bear the pain of his own actions, plus what it cost you. Sometimes allowing is the right thing to do. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is to stop someone from hurting other people, because in the end, they'll have to feel all the hurt they caused. So you're doing them a kindness by stopping that, so they don't have to carry the burden of what they've done to you. It's subtle, and also it's kind of obvious. The tricky part is, of course, knowing when to stop another and when not to. And that's when we have to put our own ass on the line and put our money where our mouth is. Are you willing to take the responsibility of being human? Stop people from hurting others, knowing that you might be wrong. You can argue the other side of that we have to stop people having abortions, because then they'll have the pain of, what they've done. Obviously, I'm not going to argue that point, but I know people who will. So we have to be willing to bear responsibility for doing the best we can with what we know. There are 500 different ways to look at this subject. I'm only offering you one. I'm willing to bear the responsibility if I'm wrong about gun control. If we do something and the numbers don't change or get worse, I'm willing to be wrong about that because we haven't tried it. If it turns out that I'm wrong about abortion and that it shouldn't be allowed and that it wasn't compassionate to be pro-choice, I'm willing to take that responsibility. Do you see how true compassion requires you to be willing to experience rejection, to be willing to be a voice in the wilderness? And I'm certainly not a voice in the wilderness about gun control. Republicans and Democrats alike statistically agree that we have to do something different. We have to put some rules in place. But we have one person who will not let those options be voted on. So we have a bottleneck. I'm sure you all know who that is. It's a spongy area, and we don't like spongy areas. We like black and white, hard ground to stand on. And it's not hard ground to stand on when you take a stand for an issue, especially if you are one of the many people who can see and at least intellectually understand the other person's point of view. I still get it. I've spent a lot of time understanding the opposite view on the gun control issue. But I've also said that I have to take a stand on it. The most compassionate stand I can take is to do my best to stop other people from having to bear the burden of having supported an issue that is killing people by the hundreds, by the thousands. At the bottom of a lot of idiot compassion is our own self-serving interest of that. We don't want to be disapproved of. We want to be liked. We don't want to feel the other person's pain. We give in and concede in order to not feel the conflict. Because it's easier. Idiot compassion is way easier than saying, no, I will not stand here while you do something that's going to hurt someone else, because it will eventually hurt you even more. And I care about you that much that I'm willing to risk your censure. I'm willing to risk your judgment in order to stop you from at the end of your life having to see all the damage you've been a part of. I'm willing to have you hate me and resent me, talk shit about me, whatever, because I care about your everlasting soul. And I'm willing to be wrong. I'm not willing to let my energy be so scattered looking at everyone else's points of view on the two issues of gun control and immigration. And white supremacy, which is wrapped in an immigration wrapper. It's like an ugly, horrible candy bar wrapped in rhetoric and fancy things, hiding a big bucket of evil, a big evil bar of yuckness. Thich Nhat Hanh is a Vietnamese monk who speaks out on difficult issues. When he first came to the United States, he was speaking out against the war in Vietnam and, of course, took an enormous amount of pushback on that. People screaming at him, people attacking him. And yet, he was able to respond with compassion for their upsetness, but never veering from the stand he had taken that the war in Vietnam was needed to stop. So genuine compassion, true compassion, requires us to do a lot of self-examination. It requires us to tap into our wisdom, to understand the risks involved when stopping someone from doing what they want to do because you can see a different picture. Idiot compassion doesn't listen to people. When bad things happen, a lot of well-intentioned people rush in and they go to the scene, which creates an enormous amount of difficulty. Or they send all kinds of things that aren't actually useful because there's nowhere to put them and there's no people to process them. So this is, again, like acting without asking. The cities of El Paso and Dayton said, don't come here, political people, person in the White House. It costs us an enormous amount of money and you haven't paid the bill from when you were here before. And you're adding to the pain. But it doesn't stop that person from going anyway for a lovely photo op and to rally his base. The compassionate act would be to say no and hold that line. Can you imagine what some people's life review is going to look like? I don't know how this applies to your life, where you are using compassion as a reason to not take action because you don't want to deal with the consequences of what taking action will look like. Even if taking action is saying to your group, I don't actually agree with that. I actually see it differently. Because it means you might get kicked out of your group. But if we're thinking about the long tail game, the big picture, what do you want to be responsible for at the end, in the end? Often I make decisions because I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror and feel like I acted within the parameters of my values. That gets sticky when one of my biggest values is freedom. And I want everyone to have the freedom to do what they want. And yet, there's a couple of sticky areas that are requiring me to say, I think underneath here might be some idiot compassion. Might be another part of me that doesn't want to make anybody mad or hurt anybody's feelers. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there are times when something different is called for. What do you want to feel about yourself and your actions in the world when you go to sleep at night? What do you want to be able to say to yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning? What do you want to face at the end of your life? Was the need for approval what you really wanted to put your energy into? Or would you feel better stating your authentic feelings about any given subject? If you took fear of disapproval or pushback from other people, friends, or family off the table, what would you speak? What would you give voice to if you truly did not care how other people responded to it? I have to wonder when I see that horrific statistic that 53% of white women voted for Trump. I have to wonder how many of them were told how to vote and now regret that. I know for a fact that many women are told how they're going to vote. They're told by their spouse, or they're told by their church. Is that something you want to carry? I don't. Not anymore. I don't like it when I make people mad. And I can't make anyone mad. All I can do is state my truth, and then you decide what you want to do with that. And exiting yourself off my Facebook page and out of my world is probably best for both of us. I only know what I want to do. I only know what I want to be responsible for. That's really the bottom line if you're getting tangled up. This is a subject that's very difficult to talk about. So I know I'm wandering around here. But let me bring it back again to the bottom line. What do you want to feel about yourself and your values when you go to sleep at night? And how much does clarity matter to you when you look into the mirror? That you did the right thing according to your values, and hopefully you've taken the time to examine whether your values are truly your own or the values of your culture and your family that you've been given and have never explored for yourself. If you haven't done that, do that first and then decide where you want to stand on certain issues. I highly recommend Pema Chodron's work. There's a lot about idiot compassion versus regular compassion on the internet. A lot of times, Chogyam Trungpa, I probably butchered that, Pema Chodron's teacher, Trungpa Rinpoche. There's a lot of articles you can find that he may have borrowed the term idiot compassion from a Russian teacher named George, Gurdjieff. I know better than to even try pronouncing that one. A quote from him is, "Idiot compassion is the highly conceptualized idea that you want to do good to somebody. At this point, good is purely related with pleasure. Idiot compassion also stems from not having enough courage to say no." And I think that's where I've been in my idiot compassion journey. Stemming from not having the courage to say no, that's actually wrong. It's actually wrong that gun control don't work. It don't work, y'all. It's actually wrong that gun control doesn't work. There's tons of real world examples where it does work. But even if you take that off the table, we haven't tried it. Until we try it, we can't really say it won't work. And to keep spouting that is wrong. I say no to that. I say no to not trying it. I say no to you knowing that it won't work because long list of reasons that make no sense. I say no to the struggles and all the yuckiness and terror and pain around immigration. Like I said, I can't go into that at the moment. I think I've made my position plain on that as well. And I know a few people who do support it, and I really love those people. And also, I say no to them going forward. So, where are you at? Where are you being complicit in your silence because you don't want to feel the discomfort of conflict? Where are you being complicit in and betraying yourself because you don't want to rock the boat? You don't want to make waves. You want to be nice. You don't want to lose the people. Fine, but just be aware. Be aware and 100% honest with yourself about why you're doing what you do. Why you're saying or not saying what you're saying or not saying. Okay, thank you for listening. Think less, feel more. If you're interested in any of the work I do, thatmichellewolf.com will fill you in on everything that's going on. And I will talk to you later.